Today we're going to be assembling the Magic Shop and Potion Shop. It's another mini terrain piece, and it's relatively simple. So I've got my pieces here. This is top of page 12, and you can see I've already cut off the parts for the shrubbery and for the Adventuring Depot. I got this little extra piece that was underneath the Adventuring Depot, and that's page 12 again. And then the base is on page 16. It's these bottom two sections. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare my base. If you've watched the other videos, you can see how the base is prepared, and we'll go from there. Actually, I'm going to show you how to do the base, because I'm going to do a little something extra in case you're in case you're using it a lot more than I do. I don't know. I've been using these about once a week. So far, we took it to the con, didn't have any breaks. But if you're using it more than that for a longer period of time, you may want to reinforce the base material a little bit. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut out the base material. So first, cut out the parts. And the Magic and Potion Shops is a really fun setting. It's got a lot of fun parts. It's got some extra parts that you will just want to you could put on if you want. Some cool books and potion bottles and stuff. And you could use scissors for this part, but I'm already all set up to use the X-Acto knife, and it's just easier. Alright, now in order to reinforce your base, what you want to do is get about a 2-inch piece of just regular white printer paper, and you want to cut it into a 2-inch strip. And this just gives your base a little more strength in case you're going to be using it a lot, or if you have kids or something. So after you've glued the two parts of this base together, and on a larger base you won't, let's get rid of that, I don't need that. On a larger base you won't really need to do that at all, but for this one, go ahead and reinforce just to show you how. Again, I haven't really seen, unless you're using these a lot or they're being, you're just bending them all out of shape. You're really rough on the openings, then you might need this, but for the most part you probably won't. But here's a little extra just to show you how, just in case maybe you run tournaments on a regular basis. Put some glue on your white sheet of paper. Use a credit card or something to spread the glue on. Get it to the edge there, and just place that onto the back of your thing, somewhere near the point where you're going to be folding, just so that it overlaps a little bit there, and that will strengthen your edge. In case you're worried about the paper being too thin to hold a lot of weight. But really, if you're doing these right and putting them together right, then you shouldn't have any problem there. But if you're not putting them together right, this might actually help you. I did have somebody comment that it might help. So after that, you're going to want to fold this in half and cut out 2 triangles that will act as your basing material. Perfect. And you've got your base. So now scoring. We're going to score all the parts on this sheet. And what scoring is you go from one blue symbol, blue triangular symbol, to the other, and you lay your ruler on there, and you draw a line with a dried out ballpoint pen, and that makes a slight crease, a slight notch in the paper. You can feel it with your fingernail, and that is that's going to make it bend there before it bends anywhere else, which is exactly what you want to do. So any place where there's, you know, triangle to triangle, you go from there to there. These ones where it says bend to the cut. Let's see if I can get you to see that. It says bend here to the cut. You can see where the cut comes in right here. So you bend just to the cut. So you score just to the cut. Alright, and that's how those parts work. So if you have any questions about that, you score in until the place where the cut comes in. And you're going to be cutting out all the white space. So first you score everything. I like to score in a to score all the horizontal lines first, and then score all the vertical lines next. Just helps me not miss anything. That, and it can go very quickly that way. So if you see a place where the score line doesn't line up with the drawn line, follow the score line. Okay, there might not be a drawn line where you're supposed to score, but if the score arrows say to score there, then you follow that. You don't question it. Okay? And that's all the... I did vertical first, so that's all the vertical lines. No, it's not. Okay, and now we score the horizontal. And here's a place where there's no line, but it does say score, so you score where it says score. And I also have this little piece from the bottom. Don't want to forget that. And I already scored that. So, next thing's next. Cut out all the white space. You don't have to worry about cutting out these little extra bits right here, or these books yet, although you can if you want to. And I'm going to do that. Okay, so now you have all your parts, you've got your base, and let's go ahead and trim up the base before we glue anything on. You can do that just by using your metal ruler, trimming off any places where you see the white of the foam core under there. Just make sure you have a nice crisp edge. Perfect. Alright. So now we follow the instructions, and for the magic and potion shops, the first thing that you need to do now that you're past the scoring and the gluing is find MS1 and glue it to the place on the ground. And the magic shop parts are labeled MS1, the potion shop parts are labeled MS and PS respectively, magic shop, potion shop. So you want to find the place where the ground textures line up, and that's where you want to glue. You don't want to glue if the ground textures are not lining up. And there you go. So MS1, then glue MS2 and MS8. MS2 and MS8. So those are the parts that add a bookshelf to the inner wall. And the MS parts usually have books on them, so if you're looking for an MS part, look for the book iconography. So MS2 goes here, You can match up the parts with the carpet texture there on the ground and make sure that everything's lining up good. If you match up your ground textures, it's going to make it easier to do. Just easier. And then you match up your wall textures, and okay, the wall textures may not add up as well as the ground textures, but they may. It just depends on the printing registration and stuff like that. So then what you want to do after you've glued a part in is fold the whole thing flat. Okay, so you can see that stands up, makes a little bookshelf in there, and then it folds flat. So next we'll be gluing, and you want to fold flat. Fold everything flat. Every 1 or 2 parts you glue in, you want to fold everything flat. Just make sure that it folds flat. Glue MS3, 4, and 7. So 3 is here, and that's going to be your tall, skinny bookshelf. MS3, and that should line up again with the ground texture. Line it up so that the rug still looks like a rug. MS3. MS4 is gluing the whole thing down here. And again, your ground texture should line up. If you're seeing double of something, then move it. That's what I usually watch for. And then MS7 will go on the side of here. You glue in there. It's kind of tricky, but you glue it in there so that you have a bookshelf on each side of the thing. And again, let that dry for a bit before we try folding it flat, but the folding flat part should work here perfectly. Find out. There we go. If it's having a little trouble, just give it a little extra push. Just a couple of micro adjustments or something internally that need to be made for it to fold flat. That's fine. Do that while the glue is wet. Makes it a little easier. Okay. Then we also then glue down MS5 and MS10, MS6 and MS9, and that's going to be the outside bookshelves. So we're folding it valley fold, mountain fold, valley fold to create a shelf that can be glued on. And if you don't understand, a valley fold is just a fold that makes a valley in the paper, and a mountain fold is a fold that makes a mountain out of the paper. I don't know how else to explain it. You fold the two halves away from you. The ends, if you're folding the ends away from you, that's going to make a mountain. If you're folding the ends towards you, it's going to make a valley. So, mountain, valley. Alright, and this piece overlaps a little bit with the other base tab that you already glued down. So, you want to be careful to make sure you're lining up the ground textures and you're not lining it up with the edge of that other base tab. Because if you are, it just isn't going to look good. It's not going to look good. It just won't work as well. Because it'll be too far out. So, overlaps just a little bit on the other one. And again, fold everything flat while you're gluing. And that'll save you some heartache later on. And this piece. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Alright, so make sure it folds flat. If it's just a little bit, it's okay. Alright. As long as it folds flat and comes back up, you are good to go. Okay, so the next part we'll be doing is the countertops. Find the two countertops that have books on them and scrolls and such, and those are the ones that go over here. So MS11 and MS12 you glue down, and those just lay on there on top of the of the bended parts, folded parts there. So makes a nice little counter. Your adventurers can kind of belly up to the counter, request their scrolls of fire, ancient lore books about Lich Kings and such. Books containing lists of names of ancient dragons. Just the sort of thing you might need. A little magic shop there. Alright. So then, the potion shop. And again, we follow PS1 first. Again, lining up the ground textures as best you can. Then PS2, and PS3, and PS7. So PS2 is gluing this cauldron base down. This is the potion shop, so naturally there's a bubbling cauldron. Mixing up a potion for you. PS3 is this kind of discarded potion sign that's leaning against the side of the shop. And that just goes right there to line it up again with the ground texture. And you won't need to glue the top of PS3 to anything, but PS7 glues the top of the cauldron to the wall. Right there, so let's glue that. Again, we make sure everything folds flat and pops back up before we move on to the next thing. And that is just weird. I think I glued that down a fraction of an inch over. So again, if you glued something down in a slightly wrong spot, just pop it up, glue it back down. If it leaves a mark, then you can cover that up with one of these spare bottles or books or something that's included. So there we go on that. Alright. And because there's a weird spot there, it seems to be a slight thing, then we have these extra bottles that were included. What I'm going to do is cut one out real quick, and I'll glue that bottle right here where I pulled up the other piece. Sort of a weird spot there. And cover up your error with an extra bit. So now, instead of a weird spot on the floor, there's a dropped bottle. Perfect. Alright. We glue down the other side, PS4. Again, making sure the ground textures line up. And then we'll glue down PS5 and PS6. Now you want to make sure the arrows line up in direction. They don't have to line up in position. So these little arrows that are on the glue spots, make sure they're going the same way. They might not be in the same spot on the glue spot, but they will be pointing the same way. And that is pretty important to get that right, because it'll solve some issues. So. Okie doke. Now we're gluing down PS10 and PS11. Those are pretty much the same as the other side. Just get some glue on there, center them. PS8 and PS9. And there you go, we got the main structure of the shops, and everything should fold flat. We're going to give that a few seconds to dry on the countertops. Countertops are fairly likely to pop off if you fold it too soon. Yeah, there we go. But the whole thing folds flat. Push that down, make sure it's folding flat. And push down your bookshop, magic shop over here, make sure everything's folding flat there. If your countertop starts to come off, just glue it again. Make sure that it's sticking. Alright? Okay, so the whole thing will fold flat, but right now it won't pop back up. That's why we add this crucial middle section. Alright? And that is what we're about to do. So we start with PS12 and MS15, and we glue one to each side here. And the easiest way to glue these on is just to line them up in the corners. They go right onto the corner there, so that they line up against the corner, and that will be the exact right spot where they need to be. So I'm going to glue that on, hold it right there on the sides. I would say you'd want to hold and squeeze these in place for about 10 seconds, just because this is a part that gets the most stress. You want to make sure it has a good connection to your buildings. If it doesn't, it'll kind of start to come off, and you'll have to glue it on a couple of times, or again, to make sure it stays on there. So if you hold it a little bit the first time, you won't end up gluing it on a second time. And now it's time to glue down the tops. Just MS16 and PS13. We can glue those right on. And this is a place where you just want to make sure the lines line up with the edges. If the texture doesn't line up exactly, that is my fault. Actually, yeah. But just make sure it lines up and you'll be good to go. Or it lines up, the lines lined up with the edge, and that's about in the middle. And you've got your magic and potion shops. So they fold flat, hopefully. They fold flat, pop back up, and you are ready to have your adventurers visit the shop section of the market, get their adventuring needs met. So thanks a lot for checking out the video, and thanks for checking out the pop-ups.